I look at the challenge of an Islamic liberation theology, and I use the analogy of a restaurant. So here is this here is an Indonesian restaurant, and the restaurant specializes in Indonesian cuisine. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Indonesian cuisine, but there are a few kind of staples inside Indonesian cuisine. For example, peanut butter, peanut and coconut. These are some of the staples inside Indonesian cuisine. Indonesian cuisine generally doesn't deal with hamburgers. They don't deal with hamburgers. They don't deal with the ordinary kind of fast food that you get in your McDonald's. So on one fine day, a couple of clearly well-heeled men walk into this restaurant. They look powerful, they look strong, and their wallets look fat. And without much politeness, they ask you for, each of them want a double Whopper hamburger. Is this what Whoppers are called? Yes. Each one of them want a double Whopper. And then somebody rushes, the waiter smiles, yes. And the waiter rushes off to the back, tells the manager that this is what these people want. And the manager first, what the hell? I mean, this is, I've heard about it. I've eaten it a couple of times, but this is not exactly what our restaurant is about. But what do I do? The restaurant may be having, sometimes it's survival questions, but sometimes, here is my chance to make a big break. If I get these guys' order, and if they start becoming regulars in my shop, then I can tweak my cuisine in order to accommodate them. And so off he goes, he tweaks his cuisine to modify stuff in the kitchen and so on. And then the guys demand more and more tweaking of the cuisine. And then in the end, the restaurant becomes just a very mild version, perhaps some peanut sauce sprinkled over it and so on. But it is just another, McDonald's say in China. It's largely American food, but the design of the McDonald's store may be different and a bit of an item or two here on the menu, but nothing has substantially changed. It is what the American appetite demands. So then a question arises about what kind of restaurant is this after a while? It still has claims to be, and in order to appeal to the mystique of Indonesian cuisine, to the Oriental, to the Occidental imagination, you have to continue phrasing this as Indonesian cuisine because there is something exotic about this. And then after a while, the same guys come in, and now they're demanding, say, they want pasta, different kinds of pastas on the menu. And then the entire operation in the restaurant has to change again to fit the demands of these people. And so for many, many years in the world of Islam, I'm just using one example, in our classical studies, we've studied a range of books in our traditional institutions. I'm a product of one of these Diyar al-Ulum, one of these Dar al-Ulums, religious institutions. I spent 8 years in them in Pakistan. So we have a classical Islamic course that we follow. Okay, and one of the elements in there is in our legal books is Kitab al-Jihad, the book on jihad. Okay. And we go through it in the same way that people in the yeshivas, in the Orthodox yeshivas, they study all these texts and so on. And the texts in some ways are alive, but they are alive as part of a tradition. And then certain political impulses are required to energize parts of the tradition and to bury other parts of the tradition. So after 79, they come into the Muslim world. Afghanistan is invaded. The Taliban are emerging. And with the emergence of the Taliban, you see now the possibilities of the defeat of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War and the emergence of a single dominant power in the world. Okay, so a fusion of Pathan, Afghani, fierce independence that had seen Afghanistan early on becoming a grave for the British colonialists and for several other colonial adventures. This is now invoked. Pashtun, resistance, rebellion, strength, images of macho, of the male, and defending us against the outsiders and so on. This is now fused with a certain kind of Islam. An Islam that now has all these texts on jihad. But for many years, the text on jihad had acquired another kind of meaning. The Tablighi Jamaat, for example, uses all the Quranic texts on jihad and hadith on jihad. And for years, for nearly 100 years now, they've been using it in a completely non-violent application of it. So these texts on jihad become energized. And a jihadi Islam is now infused with billions of dollars, mostly financed by the Saudis, armed by the United States and other European governments, and these people get trained. They go off to Afghanistan, and a new Islam is now being generated. Because the empire has now demanded on the menu of this restaurant a jihadification of Islam. We want a jihadi menu. And this is what we need. This is what we need, and we need it now. And there are side benefits, of course, for the owners of the restaurant. There's to produce what these people want, you know. They may be sacrificing Indonesian cuisine in the process. They'll be destroying Indonesian cuisine in the process, but there is the exotica, the attraction of the Occident for this special kind of cuisine on the one hand. And on the other hand, there's also, of course, lots of money to be made from the arms influx, and you take your 10% or your 20% and so on. So the restaurant owner, who is an indigenous Indonesian, is also benefiting from this. So our local oligarchs, our local kings, our local sultans and so on are all in on the deal. And then the Soviet Union is dislodged. The Soviet Union collapses. There is now one sultan and no need for two competing sultans at the moment. And the empire then comes into the world of Islam and now demands another product on the menu. The demands of the empire at the moment is moderate Islam. So the Indonesians as a people are of no consequence to the empire. They're not interested in Indonesian cuisine at all. It is their needs. And there is a veneer of, we're eating in a French restaurant, we're sophisticated. We're eating, you know, where this chef is a Michelin chef. And so there's this veneer about this, and underneath this veneer is brute power and ideology. And so the challenge then is, how do we deal with this continuous invasion of our culture and our cuisine? How do we confront it? And to develop an Islam, an understanding of your cuisine, that in some ways must piss these people off. If you develop a cuisine that consistently suits the appetite of these people, and I'm putting it in a different way from the way I put it at the summer school, if you produce continuously a cuisine that fits the appetite of these people, then you are ultimately producing a cuisine that is, I think, profoundly heretical and anti-prophetic. Because prophets did not come into the world to satisfy the appetites of the powerful. Prophets never came into this world to ask, how do I fit in with the powerful? So when you continuously reshape your cuisine, you produce the moderate Muslim, you produce the peace-loving Muslim, you produce the Muslim that is at ease with modernity, the Muslim that is at ease with socio-economic exploitation and injustice, that has no questions to ask of the arms industry, that doesn't ask, where does your hunger come from? I really think, for the sake of your own health, you know, I'm sorry, there's one is the integrity of my restaurant, of my cuisine, and the other is, I'm sorry, but a diet may not be bad for you, so I'm not going to produce the kind of food that you are continuously demanding of me. But this is the one challenge that we have. The challenge of the empire that seeks to own this Islam, mold this Islam, continuously reshape this Islam in terms of its own demands. And we cannot ignore that there are also dynamics inside the restaurant. And the dynamics inside the restaurant is that in the kitchen, there are slave workers inside the kitchen. And that this Indonesian owner has employed these Indonesian guys, but he's got their documents, or he smuggled them in from Indonesia, and they are without documents. And they live in the netherworld. In Indonesia, I was in Tunis a few days ago, and somebody spoke about some parts of Tunisia as the Manatik al-Dhull, the areas of the shadows. So inside the restaurant is the world of the shadows, the world of another marginalized. So Indonesian cuisine is under attack. But Indonesian cuisine also comprises of real Indonesian people who are working in that kitchen. And they are without papers. They can't surface. If they surface, then the other representatives of these powerful men will seize them. So inside Muslim societies are Muslims who are being marginalized and oppressed by other Muslims. But their own marginalization, their own oppression cannot surface, because if it does surface, it gets weaponized by those powerful people who have got their own reasons for invading the restaurant, but now they have an additional reason. They'll say, oh, we are coming to liberate those workers who are oppressed inside the Muslim society. So we are coming to liberate the Muslim women in the restaurant. We're coming to liberate the gay Muslims. We're coming to liberate the atheist Muslims inside the... So, but at the end of the day, there are these serious problems inside the restaurant also. And you're sitting with a restaurant owner who keeps on telling his folks, but we've got these barbarians at the door. So we've got the Western civilization at the door. They're invading our society. They're going to occupy us. And so you have the ulama, for example, in many Muslim countries, in Saudi Arabia, in several other, who keep on saying, you know, the barbarians are at the door, the barbarians are... And of course, politically, we know that it is true. But this, the barbarians at the door, is used as a weapon to control the workers inside the kitchen. And so, how do we find a balance between acknowledging and fighting the empire at the door, and at the same time not have this being used as a continuous weapon against us? So it is in this context to address the multiple forms of oppression, and I have no doubt what the priority is. There are priorities. I do think that the barbarians at the door requires our far greater urgency. And we can't allow the barbarians at the door to shape the urgencies of Muslims inside. But we need to acknowledge also that there are issues inside Muslim society. And so for me to conclude with is that Muslims outside the global north must acknowledge that they are citizens of the empire. You are citizens of the empire. And as citizens of the empire, regardless of your own positionality inside the empire, whether it is male or black or male or female or whatever, regardless of your own positionality inside the empire, you are also citizens of the empire. And that imposes then the urgency on you to begin to challenge your own civilizations, your own empires. Your priority cannot be those societies out there. The liberation of those societies, yes, but the problematization of your own societies and how your economic structures, your military industrial complexes, your oil industries are in fact responsible for much of either the dysfunctions inside Muslim societies or the difficulties inside Muslim societies of actually addressing all of those.